Hi, I'm Tammy Mastroberte, founder of Elevated Existence and publisher and editorial director of Elevated Existence magazine. We are here today with Nick Ortner, who is the producer of the documentary The Tapping Solution and author of the brand new book with the same name called The Tapping Solution. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
Yes, congratulations on the new book. It's really great. I had a chance to actually review it. I know it's hot off the press right now. And I love it because I really feel like it's something that people can really almost use it as a reference. It's really not a book that you're going to buy and read once and think it's interesting and put it down and never open it again. The way that you've actually set it up is something that people can go back to over and over again. You offer scripts for tapping, and it's fantastic. So I'm really excited about it, and
Oh,
I'm
thank
really
you.
happy that you're joining us today.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So the first question really is for people who maybe are not familiar with tapping or EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. Can you explain just a little bit about, what actually it is and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So tapping or EFT, emotional freedom technique, is the sort of brand of tapping that we do, the kind of tapping we do. We call it tapping not because we're tap dancing, fortunately. I don't think I'd be into that, but because we are literally tapping on these meridian endpoints in our body. So we're tapping on these endpoints of the meridians while saying certain statements. I like to describe it sort of as a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure, that's the tapping, or acupuncture, fortunately
Right.
without the needles, which is a big plus for everybody, and modern psychology, that's the speaking part. And it's a technique that it's actually been around for over 30 years now. It's discovered by psychologists over 30 years ago, but it's just hitting the mainstream now. And it's doing so for one simple reason. It works really well. It's certainly strange. When I first found it myself about 10 years ago, I was like, we're doing what? And for what purpose? But the latest science and research shows that it works on a huge variety of topics, everything from emotional challenges and issues, past traumas, PTSD, physical issues, pain relief, and we can go into some of those details within the interview and how it works and all those things. The reason it works is people are saying like, well, what's the science behind it? What is it actually doing? Certainly there's a lot to be said for balancing the energy body and meridians and chakras and things that people, reading and listening to this probably believe in or have an experience with. But the Western scientific research, we haven't gotten there yet, right? We haven't
Mm,
found the chakras or the energy system. What we have found is that when we do the tapping on these meridian endpoints on our bodies, while focusing on a stressful situation, on something that's bothering us, on something that's going on, we actually send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain. And the amygdala is that very ancient fight or flight response. Right? It's that part of our body that says, there's danger, run or fight. And it's an important part of our body because it keeps us safe. I think one of the challenges that we face in modern society is that we're not faced with those life or death situations necessarily, though certainly this can work to mediate those situations like PTSD with soldiers and those kind of things.
right.
But we're faced with chronic stress. We're faced with situations on a daily basis that our body is perceiving as fight or flight situations, right? So your boss says something to you and you just feel that anger bubbling up in your body, the amygdala fires off and you think, I'm not safe. I need to fight or flee. We're overwhelmed by the demands of work and everything that needs to happen and the pace of life. And again, the body hasn't adapted to the pace of life of what we're dealing with on a daily basis now. So we can use the tapping to mediate that stress response and to also go back and clean up some of the stuff in the past, the things that happened 20 or 30 years ago that we haven't let go of yet.
Right. And that's what I think is so fantastic is I think people, they might start off with something that is a quick, like if you have pain, if you have a headache and they say, "Oh my God," within a couple of minutes that, the pain is diminished. But
Yeah,
then because you mentioned like a few of the different things that you can use it for. I've actually seen, I know an author, Colette Baron Reed, has a new book, no book on weight loss. She talks about
yeah,
EFT in that. I've read books on the law of attraction that talk about using EFT for limiting beliefs and for unblocking yourself from these things
yeah.
that are kind of holding you back. So there's so many different things that you can use, whether it's healing the body or like we said, working on some of these beliefs. So the question is what are some, you go through so many of them in the book,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, and you break them down through chapters so people can actually go and look at which one they're interested in. After they read the book they can kind of go back to it. So what are some of the things that we can use it on? And does the actual procedure differ, or does your, the words that you're using differ depending on what you're actually using the EFT for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, one of the things that I love about EFT is that we use the same process of tapping every time. So once you learn the points, it can take a couple minutes to be like, okay, where am I tapping? What are the
Right.
points of memorizing? But once you learn them, you have them for life. What changes is what we say, what we focus on. And some of the big topics that I've worked with people on, finances and money. Now you think, what on earth does making more money have to do with tapping? We're addressing the limiting beliefs. We're addressing the patterns of procrastination. We're addressing the things that happen in our childhood. If you grew up and your parents at the dinner table fought about money all the time and said money doesn't grow on trees and told you all these things about money, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, you're walking around on a daily basis with those beliefs operating. And oftentimes it's unconscious, so we make decisions that might not be in our best interest. We have a project that could be great over here, but we don't follow through because it doesn't feel safe to do it, so we go somewhere else. Right? So what I found is, and at least in my life personally, when I cleaned up the old money stuff, the old patterns of boom or bust, my thing was I'd either make a lot of money, like I've always been an entrepreneur, so I'd make a lot of money one year, and then the next year it was all gone.
Right.
For some reason I was like, no, no, this isn't safe to do this well, so I'm going to blow it all, or I'm not going to be as responsible in business. I'm going to make bad decisions. And I wasn't sitting there going, well, I'm going to make bad decisions this year.
Right.
But it's what happened. When I sat back and I looked at it, I go, look, there's an obvious pattern here. And I think most of us, in whatever aspect of life we're looking at, we can see these patterns, that we do these same things again and again and again. Certainly with weight gain and weight loss and eating patterns, those were big, right? And we've done the diets, we've tried the different methods, we've tried to push, but for some reason we keep going back to the same weight, to the same thing. I mean, how many times have you heard, well, I lost 20 pounds and I felt great, and then I put it right back on?
Right.
Or I'll also hear from people who have been dieting for the last 20 years, but they stay within a range. Like they can only get, if they want to get to 140, they can only get to 145 and they won't go any further.
Right.
You know?
Now, so in the book, you actually talk about how you first came across it. Well, you explain the first time you used it was actually on a pain in your body.
Yeah.
So how did you even first really come across EFT, and what was your first experience like?
Well, I forget what link I followed from where, but something stumbled me on this weird tapping thing, and I actually kept seeing it a lot of different places. It was like these people, like you said, in different books, and it's like a lot of people were mentioning the fact that they use this process in their toolbox of healing. So I read about it a couple times, and I kind of ignored it, and it was kind of like, it's too weird for me. I don't get it. But I saw it, when you see something enough times, you go, okay, I better pay attention. And what's the harm in trying it for a few minutes? So I remember one of my first experiences was on neck pain. I'd woken up with just a crick in my neck. And, it's one of those silly things that's not a big deal, but you look like a robot for a couple of days, but you can't turn your neck, so you're like this. And there's not much you can do. Maybe try some Advil, you stretch it out. It's just a slight annoyance all day.
Right.
So I said, okay, I read that this works on pain relief. So I'm looking at the computer screen and learning the points and this neck pain, this neck pain. The next thing I knew, it's just gone. And I've seen that happen again and again with pain relief. And really what happened for me was, it was great that the neck pain went away, but I started asking myself, if this can change, what else can I do with this in my life? What else can I change? And that's what I went to do. I went through step by step, looking at my life and saying, where do I want change, and what needs to happen for that change to happen? So what are the limiting beliefs I need to let go of? What are the events from my past I need to let go of? So much stuff, as you know, it goes back to childhood things. It goes back to things that happened when we were in high school and middle school, and it seems so silly, but I hear again and again, I'll talk with somebody on a phobia that they have now, a fear of speaking in public, and sure enough, it goes back to 5th grade. They stood up in front of the class, somebody laughed at them, and they've never been able to let that go.
Right.
What the tapping does, the great part about the physical component, is it allows the body to actually release it. Because you can talk until you're blue in the face and go, yeah, I mean, the kids, they laughed at me, and you just feel worse, and you feel it in your body. When you do the tapping, you actually feel, and I know you've experienced it, the release that happens. It's like, I don't know where this went, but it's no longer here, or I just kind of sense it over there, and I'm trying to think about it, but I don't care.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, I attended a workshop you did with Chris Carr last year in New York. And I think a lot of people connect to it quickly, especially when you're dealing with pain.
Yeah.
Because, 1 minute you have pain and then the next minute, how did it just, all I did was tap on these different parts of my body and my pain level went from like an 11 to a 2. How did that happen? And
The
I
pain
think,
relief stuff is unbelievable.
oh, it really is, and so and that's why I've always been excited about EFT. Years ago, I did an interview with Gary Craig, who was
Yeah.
kind of one of the people who really started bringing it out. And so I got excited about your book, and I wanted to do this interview because the magazine's really about kind of arming people with these tools that they can use, and to
Yeah.
me, this is such an ultimate tool.
It is. Absolutely.
So definitely. So now another thing I notice in myself, I've noticed it in other people, I've heard other people talk about it, they really get caught up in, okay, I know the tapping points, but what am I supposed to say? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I say something and then I'm not saying it right and then it doesn't work and then I screw the whole thing up?
Yeah.
So how and in the book, what I really love is that you actually give scripts, like sample scripts that people can use, and then you also break it down so that people can kind of apply their own scripts and their own unique, personalized things to it. But can you explain a little bit about, can you say the wrong thing and how do you deal with, what am I supposed to say to myself while I'm tapping?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can't mess it up. I mean, that's the good news that, worst case, nothing will happen because you didn't connect
Right.
enough to the issue. The reason we use the language is to connect with the issue. Language helps us to have an understanding of what it is that's going on, but you can, in fact, tap without language. If you're feeling an emotion, you can do the tapping and have a result. The reason I provide the scripts in the book is that's sort of the beginner's first step. And a lot of people really, like you said, appreciate that because it helps them get started.
Right.
And one of my intentions for the book was to help people understand sort of the psychology, the way of thinking, to figure out how do I get to my issues? How do I break down the specifics? What questions do I ask myself? There's a lot of questions in the book that it's ask yourself this. If you have pain in your back, what's the emotion in your back? And it's like, okay, anger, great. So all you have to do is, even though I have this anger in my back, I deeply and completely accept myself. So it certainly takes work and effort to become better at the language. I find that I become a better practitioner every day. With every time I work with somebody, I get a new insight, a new way to approach things.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, what's great about it is you've got the basics, you learn in a few minutes, and the rest is a lifelong journey of just understanding yourself better. And that's what this is all about at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Understanding yourself better. What is it that I'm really feeling? What are the layers of the onion that I need to peel away to get to what's going on?
Right. And like you said, with certain things, it's kind of, it really interrupts that stress response in the body. So you get the immediate benefits. But then it really kind of helps you to clear and kind of process these different things that maybe you haven't been processing.
Well, absolutely. And the great thing about interrupting the stress response is that that's when the new insights come in.
Right.
I think most of us understand that our best ideas come when we're in the shower, taking a bath, going for a walk in nature. And there's a good reason for that. It's that the body isn't stressed. When that stress response actually activates in the body, and it doesn't have to be a full-on activation. You could just have a busy day where you're running around and moving, and your body's still stressed, right? What happens from a purely physiological basis is the blood flows away from the forebrain into the limbs, into the arms and legs in order to fight or flee. You're running and moving, and there's stress in the body. So you don't have the time, the energy, and the actual blood in the brain to come up with these great ideas. That's why I'll do tapping with people, let's say on financial stuff again, like I mentioned in the beginning. And in the beginning of the call, they'll say, well, my finances are a disaster. There's nothing I can do. I have this, that. So we'll do some tapping on different issues. And next thing you know, they take a deep breath and go, I've had that project sitting there for the last 6 months. And I know that if I just apply a couple hours to that, that can be a really nice income stream.
Right.
Where was that 20 minutes ago?
Right.
Like that didn't just magically appear then. It was always there, but our stress response, our focus, our attention was on everything that was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When we relax the body, when we open that up, we recognize what's going on in a positive way in our lives.
Right, right. Now, another thing I know, every year, I know you've been doing, I guess I might have been the past 5 years, you do the Tapping Summit.
Yeah.
which a bunch of us at Elevated Existence attended this year and thought was fantastic.
That's great.
And through that, I know you've talked a little bit about the work that you've been doing you're from Connecticut, so the work
Yeah.
that you've been doing in Connecticut after the shootings that happened this year that, kind of everybody had heard about and got emotional about. I know you've been working with some of the people that were involved in that. So can you just talk a little bit and tell a little bit about, what you're doing there and how that's helping also?
Yeah, well, so I actually live in Newtown, Connecticut, in the town where the shooting took place. I
Okay.
grew up in the town next to here, Brookfield, and I lived in New York City for a couple of years, and then Bethel, which is another town here, and just so happened that the last couple of years I've been living in Newtown. So certainly I was hit, like everyone else was around the world, by the tragedy, and it hits even closer to home when you go, oh, this is another town. This is 10 minutes away from me. So I knew that I had to do something. I think the same feeling everybody had, and people did everything they could in their own ways. I was fortunate enough to be on the ground and to have this tool, which is amazing at dealing with stress and trauma, right? We're not dealing with grief here, I mean, for example, we've been working with parents who have lost their children. We're not tapping with them and saying, even though I lost my son, everything's okay.
Right.
Grief is the most human of emotions, ones that needs to happen. They need to experience it as part of the healing process. What we're working on is the stress and the trauma, right? And what that means is that day in particular was extremely traumatic for a lot of reasons. But to give you an example, I was working with a parent who, every time a helicopter flew by, months later, they would panic. They would feel total panic in their body.
Right.
That's just a conditioned response from that day, that horrible day when there was helicopters flying around all over the place. And now they hear it and they go right back to that day. So we tap on that conditioned response to give her the freedom to, for the rest of her life, not freak out every time a helicopter goes by.
Right.
So that's just a tiny example of the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We've been working with teachers in the school. Again, we talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder,
Right.
the fight or flight response. Those teachers and students, we've been working with kids too, were literally in the line of fire. They were facing what somebody faces when they, go to war. They were being shot at and scared and terrified. And their bodies activated that stress response and have not let that go. The reality is that Newtown today is just as safe, if not safer, than it was on December 13th, the day before the shootings. That's just the reality.
Right.
It's a safe town. It is how they describe it, a cute little town, the last place you would expect this to happen.
Right.
But these individuals who face the line of fire, who face this trauma, their minds and bodies don't know that. So they're on high alert. So we're looking to calm it down. Our intention is to be there for them, to do that work. So 5, 10, 20 years from now, Newtown isn't a town where everyone's taking Prozac and Zoloft and,
Right.
anti-anxiety meds, and that, people are on edge.
Right.
There's a different response to the tragedy. And the reality is that for anything we face in our lives, it can go two ways. Some people heal and move forward and take an empowering meaning out of it and create meaning out of what happened. Other people fall apart and they have anxiety, depression, pain, all these things. We're doing what we can on the ground, and we have a whole volunteer team and started a foundation for it to make sure that we go into the positive direction.
Fantastic. That's amazing. So the last thing I really want to obviously ask you about is, can you kind of walk us through, for people who are watching this, can you kind of walk us through maybe a sample tapping that people can see what it's about, and maybe we can just pick a topic that's kind of universal.
Yeah. So let's just do stress, okay? And
Okay.
just general stress. And we'll do stress and pain relief, because if people have pain, I'd like them to experience that. It doesn't really matter that we're going to use the stress language. So if everyone at home, just go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath. And just tune into your bodies and identify one thing that is stressing you out. One thing that happened a day ago, a week ago, a month ago. And try to be as specific as possible. So I'm stressed out about what they said, or I'm stressed out about this upcoming project. And just really tune into that and feel it in your body. And give it a number on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the utmost intensity, 0 wouldn't be there at all. And if you have pain, what I'd like you to do is identify that pain in your body. So just feel the back pain, the neck pain, the shoulder pain. And again, give it a number on a 0 to 10 scale. And once you have that number, we're going to do some tapping on it. So everyone just follow after me. We start by tapping on the karate chop point. It's on the side of the hand. You can use one hand, tap on the other. It doesn't matter which way you do it. And we're going to say these words and just repeat after me out loud.
You want me to, I can mirror you if you want.
You might feel great.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So even though I have this stress in my body,
even though I have this stress in my body,
I choose to relax now.
I choose to relax now.
Even though I have all this stress in my body,
even though I have all this stress in my body,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
We'll do that one more time. Even though I have all this stress in my body,
even though I have all this stress in my body,
I choose to relax now.
I choose to relax now.
Now we're going to tap through the points. First point's the eyebrow point, inside of the eyebrow, right where the hair ends and meets the nose. And you can use one hand, you can use the other hand, or both hands. The meridians run down both sides of the body. And just repeat, the stress in my body.
The stress in my body.
And now side of the eye, it's not at the temple, right next to the eye. Again, one hand or both. The stress in my body.
The stress in my body.
Now under the eye, all the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
Under the nose, all the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
Under the mouth, it's above the chin, below the lip, right in that little crease in there. All the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
We have 3 more points left. If you feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone, and you go down an inch and out to each side about an inch. You can tap with all 10 fingers and just say, all the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
Underneath the armpit, 3 inches underneath the armpit, right on the bra line for women. And again, one side or the other side. All the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
And the last point, this is the monkey point, but you got to do it right at the top of the head. All the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
And let's do one more round now that we know the points. Back to the eyebrow. I have so much going on.
I have so much going on.
Side of the eye, and I feel all this stress.
And I feel all this stress.
All the stress about this situation.
All the stress about this situation.
All the stress about what happened.
All the stress about what happened.
Under the mouth. I wonder if I can let it go.
I wonder if I can let it go.
Collarbone. I wonder if it's safe to let it go.
I wonder if it's safe to let it go.
Under the arm. Choosing to let it go.
Choosing to let it go.
Top of the head. Releasing all the stress from my body.
Releasing all the stress from my body.
Let me take a deep breath. And let it go. So that was a round or 2, and then we tuned back in to the original issue. So the pain was at an 8, the stress was at an 8. Oh, maybe it's a 6 now. We only did 2 minutes of tapping there. So if it shifted, you continue doing the process and keep bringing that number down further and further and further.
And now, and if you were talking about a specific situation, like say you were writing a book and you were stressed out about writing the book, you would actually put that in, like all this stress about writing this book, right?
Exactly. And the more specific you can get, the better. So you can say, I feel so much stress about writing this book. There's no way I can get it done. I've been trying to write it for 5 years and it never gets done. You know,
right.
I hate myself for it. You know, like whatever comes up, and you know, a lot of people ask themselves, like, why would you possibly say I hate myself? Like you're affirming the negative. And what we're doing here is affirming it for a short period of time. We're not affirming it. We're just speaking the truth. We're just saying, if part of you hates yourself because you haven't written your book for 5 years, it is better to speak it out loud, acknowledge how you feel, and let it go, as opposed to burying it down deep. I mean, that's what most people do. When they think about positive thoughts and emotions, they go, okay, I got to be positive. So instead of getting it out and having it leave your body and leave your energy field, they push it back in and down. It's almost like they swallow it. Well, I'm just going to ignore the fact that I am so mad at myself. I'm going to be positive. But that's not the truth. You know?
Right.
So we use this process. And you saw a little bit of an example there that we started on the negative, the stress, and then started doing some positive affirmation.
Right.
Let it go. It's safe to let it go, etc.
Fantastic. Now, again, the book is called The Tapping Solution. The documentary is still available also, the DVD, which is The Tapping Solution. How can people find out more about you, if you want to give some information about your website or anything that you have coming up?
Yeah, well, it's nice and easy. It's thetappingsolution.com. So that same name will get you there. There's a free ebook on there that teaches the very basics of tapping, and the book will be in all bookstores around the country on April 2nd.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. I'm excited about this. I wish you luck with the book, and I definitely recommend it highly.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.